Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Northeast Scene Podcast. This is Keith.
And Tommy.
How's everybody doing tonight? Today, whenever you listen to this, we've got a special guest today, bass playing extraordinaire, member of mathcore greats, Dillinger Escape Plan, and current member of Rising Stars Azusa, Liam Wilson.
Woo!
Liam, how you doing?
I never had it so good. Thanks for asking.
We love to give our guests the royal welcome, and listen, we're really happy to have you on the show, so thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm grateful. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So, what's going on, man? How are you doing today?
Today is pretty good. Yeah, I mean, most days right now I'm primarily just parenting. Trying to, keep up with the domestic responsibilities, a little bit of music stuff, depending on how much is on my plate.
How many kids do you have?
Currently one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She's 5.5. A lot of energy, a lot of fun.
Yeah, now I always admire parents because now I have nieces and nephews, and I would strategically visit 2 hours before they went to bed.
Okay.
And then leave in the morning before they got up because I just didn't have the energy to keep up.
It's a lot.
To be a full-time parent, to have a child. Now, Tommy's got 3. I don't know how you guys do it.
I guess it just kind of, I feel like the stamina builds up. I guess you just kind of get ready. It's always like pushing me to the edge of what I feel like I can handle, whether it's emotional or patience-wise or... I have an idea of what I'm going to do when she goes to bed and she doesn't go to bed and I have a deadline, But, the days are long, but the years are short. And I'm really into the connection. When Dillinger was, she's 5. So that kind of puts us at like the window between an album and then some touring. And then I'd be home for like 6-7 months and I could just, be the stay-at-home dad. So I felt like I had this really good early connection with her. And then I disappeared for like 2 years. And now I feel like I'm kind of, not like backpedaling, but certainly like, shoveling extra coal into that relationship. And right now it's paying dividends. So, I there's a lot of uncertainty and confusion, but I feel like my priorities are in order.
That's great. So how are you getting by during COVID? I mean, I'm assuming you're a full-time touring musician working in music. So what have you been doing while everything's on hold?
Well, I mean, that's true some of the time, but most of the stuff that I've been doing since Dillinger is kind of, like a break-even endeavor. You mentioned Azusa, the touring that I've done, the music that we've put out. It's at least break even, not much more than that, maybe a little under, maybe a little over, at certain times. It's not really like we're doing it for the money necessarily. But not going broke doing it at least makes it
that always makes it more fun.
Well, and like explainable to, my family. It's like, this is why I'm going away for 3 weeks, or, same with John from another project that I did, and kind of anything else I pick up. So I guess to go back to the question directly, I was supposed to be in Europe right now with Devin Townsend. That's not happening. So, I'm in a weird place because I haven't really been depending on music as my primary source. After Dillinger, it was like, I kind of needed to lick my wounds a little bit. I had a family. I was into that. I had musical projects to satisfy me creatively in terms of like output, in little breaks here and there. But I wasn't really in the mood to like beat the street for 9 months a year in a van again. That just wasn't my vibe. I wanted like a little bit of victory lap and a little bit more like, privacy or something.
Yes.
I don't know. I dropped out of art school to do Dillinger. So I just reconnected with a lot of old friends and was invited to work at a sculpture foundry, like a metal sculpture foundry. So I was I know a lot about, I think I know a lot about craft and like shop work, but this was like a whole new environment. I didn't, I kind of still don't know what I'm doing, but was welding and, bronze statues and sand casting. So
That's awesome.
I was busy doing stuff, kind of like the most metal job I could possibly have. When
Yeah, like it's literally a metal job.
it's
That's
like
beautiful.
super metal.
Tommy, you used to do welding too, right? Didn't you just learn it on the job?
Yeah, so that was my summer job all the way through college, and my first 4 years of teaching. I worked for the Department of Public Works, and like when you go to those like the public parks, and they have
Yeah.
those the grills that are set in the ground.
Sure,
That are
yeah.
I made those.
Amazing. So was that like MIG welding? I'm assuming.
So yeah,
Or sticks?
it was all, most of it was MIG. There was also some other stuff that I was kind of the assistant on, like this. They would do some of the TIG stuff.
Yeah.
But they were mainly on like, so part of Public Works is also maintaining the covered bridges. And
Yeah.
the covered bridges have those huge, what they call bridge plates. They're the metal plate that leads up to the wooden portion.
Okay.
So they would bring those out there, and they would do like the stick welding on stuff like that. And
Okay.
I honestly, that stuff scares the daylights out of me.
Yeah, I don't know anything about stick. I know I do a little bit of MIG, but mostly TIG. And it's kind of interesting. It kind of reminds me a little bit of drumming, where you kind of have to have this like, you have your
cadence.
foot, you have your, and both hands kind of have to be doing this little dance.
Yeah, like once you learn how to set a pool and kind of drag it and start to kind of like get that cadence down, it works really. It's especially if you're working with the same type of wire and the same type of metals. That was the nice thing about welding with building the grills. There was a template, so it was literally just use the plasma cutter to cut the sections. Oh yeah, dude. That actually, I have a pretty gnarly scar on my leg from one, and it went through. It was just slag that came off, and it went through my apron, and it went through a pair of jeans and right onto my knee. So I have a pretty gnarly one. Yeah. At the time, I was a smoker, and the guy who taught me how to weld was a smoker. So we would like kind of constantly keep each other in check of like, are you going out to smoke? Okay, go outside the building. Close the door. Make sure that when you come in, all the embers are out. Like it was very. We were trying to like.
You guys weren't like lighting cigs with the torch or anything?
Oh, I used to do that. I did that with the. If I was working in the, so I would. There was days where I was in the shop and I would do stuff like, like they would replace mufflers and stuff like that, and I would just cut mufflers out or like that kind of stuff. I would do it out in the because you're also. I mean, you can control on oxygen acetylene. You can control how the what the flame looks like. So you can have it at a relatively low, like it kind of just looks like like a fire breather kind of thing coming out. It's just like it's not like a white hot bolt coming out of that thing, like or like that like super like blue flame. It's it's just fire. And I would always pack my cigarettes down really really heavy, so like you just had to get that end kind of lit where the paper was, and then you could just take a big drag and you'd be fine.
That story actually kind of makes me want a cigarette, but I'm going to refrain for my own personal health. So, Liam, I'm going to take us back a little bit.
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
Pretty much Delco, just outside of Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I could get really specific.
Let's get specific.
Okay. I was born at Riddle Memorial Hospital on.
Oh, so you even know that? Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
And then I lived in Broomall for like less than a year.
Mm-hmm.
Then Havertown near the Skadium.
Yeah.
And, most of that time I was also living with my grandparents. My mom was pretty young and sick when I was born, and it was just easier for me to be there. So Drexel Hill was like another area I spent a lot of time in. Yeah. And then Springfield, Delaware County is kind of where I feel like I had like my most formative years.
So was it pretty wild in Delco? Like, were you a wild kid or were you a quiet kid?
Both. I feel like I've ran around with a bunch of knuckleheads, and I feel like my friends are knuckleheads, but it's, but they're smart, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I went to high school in North Philly, and so I just kind of had exposure to things, and I always kind of, I never I was never into things for like vandalism's sake or anything like that, but I was into, like graffiti. It was like I wasn't into it for vandalism's sake, but I was into it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love tagging and graffiti. I think it's an awesome art form. It's just not something I never like when people would like go, "Hey, we're like going out to go tagging," and it was like some ridiculous walk. They all came back the next day with poison ivy, and like they left a ladder because somebody came out. I was like, bro, this is not my scene. Like this is...
I mean, I'm into that for like the romance and like the stand by me-ness of it all.
Yeah.
But, so then but at the same time, I was kind of getting into things like bass and, or I was getting into skateboarding, but I realized I wasn't like that great at it.
Yeah.
And didn't really love it, and kind of also realized I was just kind of like an insulated person, kind of was like smoking weed and just kind of wanted to sit at home and like play bass.
Yes. Really quick, you went to high school in North Philly. Did you go to prep?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I went to LaSalle.
Okay.
So we're mortal enemies, apparently. That's what I've been taught my entire life.
You guys sound like you have, Tommy and Liam, you sound like you have similar stories. Tommy lost his spleen in a skateboarding accident, so that kind of sidelined his skateboarding career.
Okay.
Yeah, I fell on a handrail when I was 16 and ruptured my spleen. So keep in mind, like that was the era of like, that's when like misled youth came out, and that's when like the big handrail, big stair, big gap things. And I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be like this Hessian dude and just barge huge shit. And what I realized very quickly is like, you can do that, but there is a gigantic risk that goes along with it. And I rolled an ankle in the course of like probably 2 years. I think I rolled it like 6 times. And after the 6th time, I remember being like, you know what? I remember coming home, and I never even went to the doctors after like the 3rd one. I remember putting my air cast on. I remember sitting upstairs. I took ibuprofen, and I was like, is this worth it? And that's when I got really into just like, manual tricks, manual pads and like ledges. I was like, all right, I can do this. This is fun.
Do you snowboard too?
I did not snowboard, but now it's really funny. I have twin 6-year-old girls, and my one daughter was watching me. I built a bench out in the driveway. Actually, when COVID started, I was like, well, we're going to be home for a little while, and we really can't. They built a new skate park in Langhorne, so I was like, I want to go to the skate park, but you can't. It was all closed, so I was like, let's skate out in the driveway. So I built this box and started skating it out front, and my daughter was just super hype on it. So I ordered her a board online, and she got it. And as soon as the skate park opened up, because it was still, we were in that yellow phase. It's an open air skate park, but it's all concrete. So we were getting up at like 6 together every morning, and we would go to this skate park by like 6:30. And literally, I would sit on the bench with her, and I would drink coffee, and she would eat an Eggo waffle, and we would bond over that. And she is still super hype on it. Like even a few months later, I thought this was one of those things that would fizzle out on, but now like she's getting the idea of like she's starting to learn power slides now. So now she's like learning to like really control the board, and she's like, I love this more than anything else in the world. I'm like, oh no.
Oh man. Yeah, I have a friend that skates hard with his like, I guess he started when he was like 5, if not earlier. But this little kid, man, he just thrashes so much harder than I ever did, and it's just so cool to watch. But I was into snowboarding and kind of in a similar way. Like I just kind of wanted to carve big powder. Give me like a back bowl somewhere if I could get there, and that was heaven to me. I didn't really care about half pipes, and I feel like that's the same about my bass playing. Like I'll learn it, but like I just kind of want to carve big bass line bowls,
I always thought about like the people that did like half pipe, especially when it got to that like Olympic level. I was like, oh, this seems kind of corny. Like it's more like gymnastics.
It's just
than,
a lot
like,
of
kind of like a expression of like what I like. That's
sure.
what skate, like, it got like, hey, they're doing a 1080 rodeo flip, and I was like, oh fuck this. Like I'm
right. I don't appreciate the difference in detail at a certain level. Like it's just not. I mean, I honor it, and I'm glad it exists. But yeah, I kind of there's a certain layer of it that just goes completely over my head.
So what was your discovery of the scene, Liam? Did you come in with enjoying metal, hardcore?
I mean, a little bit of everything. I think by the
Yeah.
time I was like getting into bands, so I'm gonna say I was starting to play in bands in like 95.
Mm-hmm.
Like 15, 16 is when I started playing in bands that would like play shows or like get out of state. And that was kind of like crossover bands, you know, and kind of a little like Philly and South Jersey kind of all had this like sort of thuggish, mean, like hard music, you know.
Oh,
So there was
yeah.
like a little bit of that like beat downness to it, but with good breakdowns. Like it was, you know, like
Lots
some
of
it was-
jerseys at those shows. Lots of basketball jerseys. at those
Sure,
types
of
shows.
course. You know, especially at that time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, like coming up when like VOD was like just getting signed.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I would go see like some local shows, and it's funny, like the people I met at like the weirdest, most Delco local shows that are still kind of around now.
Yeah.
And then like shows at the First Unitarian Church, the Stalag, you know, CC's in Music.
Oh yeah.
Yes. I remember that place.
Out
Yeah.
in
You
the
know,
middle of
some-
nowhere, that place.
Dude, yeah, it was, but it was like just enough to get there and back in a night if you had to.
Yeah.
And you know, just kind of some of the other like Central Jersey stuff, New Brunswick stuff. You know, I don't know if that's kind of answering your question. I know you had Pat on here, and I remember like All Else Failed was like one of the first bands I ever saw like a local band CD in like a local mom and pop music shop.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
And was like, whoa, like, you know, I had gone away to this like kind of like band camp type thing in Connecticut, like a guitar workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was up there, that's when I got exposed to like Earth Crisis, Snapcase. You know, I kind of knew like Life of Agony
Yes.
was like maybe my like gateway drug or something. And then I came back with like some of that stuff and like an Over the Edge comp and some other like Connecticut stuff like with Overcast and Converge and like, but like early. And you know, so that was kind of when it was all like sparkling for me. I don't know if that directly answers the question or just kind of was like wandering.
Absolutely, no, it does. And yeah, I came in during like the reign of the three C's, like Converge, Cave In, Coalesce, and all that stuff. Snapcase. I got into Inside Out, Hatebreed, Dillinger Escape Plan, a foundational band for me in the early days of hardcore.
I mean,
but-
I went to see Dillinger, or when I went to see Coalesce at the Stalag is when I saw Dillinger for the first time. So I went to see Coalesce, and my friends were like, "Oh, you should get here early. I think you'd like Dillinger." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Now here's a question: did you like them at that show?
Yeah, I mean, I was immediately like, just, yeah, I mean, something happened at that show, and it looking back in hindsight, there's no, to me, there's no, I don't want to say luck or say, it was just very, I knew something was different immediately. There was like that love at first sight, but in a more connected way. You know, so there's like you hear your favorite band and then there's something else that just happens where I was just like, I don't even know what just happened, but my life is different.
Yes.
So then the steps that, you know, it's super weird to process that, you know, a lot of my fortune is because of somebody else's incredible misfortune, you know, so just kind of all of it just seems super weird to me.
Yeah, you know, I had the same experience seeing Dillinger. I'd been to one local show, and then we went to this big show at Middlesex County College. Dillinger was playing. I had no idea who they were. I'd never heard them. I had no idea what to expect. I'm standing up front, completely, totally unprepared, and I was almost killed. And it was terrifying, and I was hooked immediately afterwards, and Dillinger was my favorite band for like years.
Sure.
Afterwards.
I mean, I was just, my mind was kind of blown.
Yeah.
I find it really amusing too when I look at old Dillinger or like somebody will post an old Dillinger show on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I can like find myself in the crowd if it's like within 30 miles of Philly after a certain time,
Yeah, there's a video floating around on YouTube of Dillinger playing this place in Warminster called Auto Styling Incorporated,
It's like an
and
auto body shop.
it is an auto body shop,
Yeah.
exactly. And I guess I remember. So I grew up with Anthony from Circus Survive,
Sure. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he sent me the video, and he goes, "Hey, did you see the video? You and I are standing in the middle." And I was like, "I can't find me." I kind of like skimmed through the video at first, and he's like, "Asshole," and he just sent me the thumbnail of the video. He's like, "You're in the thumbnail, stupid." Like, I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Oh my god, how did I miss that?" And there's a part about 2 or 3 minutes in, Ben comes right up into my face and puts his guitar almost completely behind his back and screams in my face. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to move back a little bit.
There's a good chance I'm in that video too, and I'm pretty sure I know the one you're talking about.
Look at that. The webs we weave in the Northeast scene are just immeasurable. I love it.
It is all this weird, like, little interconnected stuff that when we start talking about it, there's so many people that are like, I was there. Oh, yeah.
Well, because there really wasn't. I mean, if Converge played in like Central Jersey, anybody who could drive there was going to be there.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
So, or maybe at 2 shows. Like I saw Coalesce, and I think it was like one of God Forbid's first shows.
Oh, wow.
And it was like Coalesce, and I forget who else was on that. And then the next night, Coalesce played at the Stalag, and I almost didn't go. I was like, oh, I saw him last night. And my friends were like, oh, you got to go see Dillinger.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I walked out like Coalesce who? Not quite like that, but yeah, I definitely.
So Tommy was peeking around online. Were you in Burnside?
I was in Burnside.
Yes.
Wow, I remember them from back in the day. I know I remember shit was always going to go down at a Burnside show.
I missed most of that stuff. Again, I was probably at some of the shows just as a spectator, or my first band was called For Life.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I was in that band for like a hot minute. I shouldn't say hot. It was a hot minute. And then Burnside for a little bit. But like by that point, I don't think I played more than like 5 shows with Burnside, 6 shows with Burnside. We tried to write some stuff. It was kind of, them trying to keep it together. Yes, and just, things were just getting complicated. And that was kind of around the same time where I started playing with Starkweather. The Dillinger rumor kind of started stirring, like, oh, if I can, if the stars align right, this is my gig.
Yeah.
Kind of had to wrap up school and some other, life ends.
Yeah. So how does it come together, joining Dillinger Escape Plan?
Like, how did it transpire, and who?
How did it all transpire?
Okay. Jim Winters is a. Do you know Jim Winters?
Yes.
Okay. So I used to work at Rock and Roll Plus on South Street.
No way. You were probably working when I would come in there all the time to buy records and, talk to whoever was behind the counter.
Yeah, this would be like 98 through 99, 97 through 99.
That was my era.
Okay. Maybe even 2000. I worked there. I met Jim Winters there. I was also listening to Starkweather one day, and Rennie from Starkweather walked in, and I was a big fan of Starkweather and the lyrics and everything, and he was like, oh, what's new, what's good? And I was kind of just trying to probe around to find what he liked, and he was like, oh, this is my band. So, that kicked off another friendship. So between the two of them, I kind of met a lot of people really quickly, sort of like the layer up, the scene people that were like 10 years and up, kind of just quickly educated me or mentored me a little bit, I guess.
Right.
Or a lot of it, to be honest. Rennie asked me to join Starkweather. That was kind of like another weird, like, this is just, I don't know, stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
And then Jim Winters around the same time joined Starkweather as well. And Dillinger had asked Jim to play bass because Jim had played bass on the Believer record, and they were fans of other stuff that he had done. And he's a good player. He's a looks good on stage.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, listen, I'm mostly like a guitar dude, and
yeah.
I could play bass, but I think I know somebody who would froth for it. or be a little bit like thirstier. So Jim comes into Rock and Roll Plus one day, gives me Ben's number, on like a piece of paper. It was like that kind of era. And I wish I still had it. Maybe I do. So I was just like, I'm not going to call him. I knew Dillinger was kind of playing somewhere nearby. I'm not even sure where Jim had seen them. But I was like, I'll just wait, and I think they got my number too. So then I waited until they came to Philly. They played the First Unitarian Church. I had met them briefly at like Paperweight Fest in New Jersey. I think that was like one of ISIS's first shows. So anyway, I kind of knew them a little bit, and like my name sort of stuck out a little bit. I think because there was like a little bit of familiarity when we officially met. So anyway, I get in the back of one of their cars, and they're listening to like one of the first mixes of Calculating, and maybe we were like halfway through 43 when I got in. I don't know. We were somewhere like not quite at the beginning, and I just remember like just sitting there and just kind of keeping my mouth shut and letting them try to do the talking, but and just listening. Really, we weren't like talking business or anything. And I just said like, yeah, it sounds like Radiohead and Cynic. And I think they were just like, whoa, okay, like he kind of gets something, or he smells what we're stepping in a little bit. Yeah. So, that kind of just kept the buzz and the bug in our ears. I, stayed in touch with them. They were doing a lot of touring and like building up to the Calculating stuff, doing the Bungle tour. I just kept in touch. Anytime they were nearby, I went. I think once or twice I even kind of roadied with them up to like a show in Boston or, something like that, and just, just hung out as much as I could without seeming like the weirdo, right. And making Jeff seem, like, who the fuck is this dude? Which he probably was, and maybe he wasn't. I don't know. Jeff's been a good sport about the whole thing.
Jeff always just seemed to kind of be doing his thing. Jeff Wood, I'm referencing. He was a live bass player for Dillinger Escape Plan.
That just kind of kept going. I didn't really know what was happening. Not a lot of communication. I would drive up. I'd learn like 3 songs. I'd come home. I wouldn't hear anything for a couple months. I'd drive up. I'd learn like 2 more songs. I'd hang out a lot more than I'd jam, which was fine to get to know them.
So now let me ask a question.
Yeah.
You drive to meet the band live, and you're playing bass with them live to learn the songs.
No. I would just go and hang out.
I see.
Like just kind of as like roadie. And just to kind of be like part of the interview is like, can this dude hang? This dude like a liability, just a way to for me to kind of blend in.
Well, also you're gonna have to spend an enormous amount of time with these people,
dude. That's what people don't get. Like being in a band is not just like, can you shred,
right?
Or like, do you have connections? It's like I'm on stage with you, especially at that time. I'm on stage with you for like 35 minutes. And I got to hang out with you for 24 hours. Yeah. Are you cool or not? It's like, who cares if you shred, if you're a turd of a human? So, I think that was a big part of it. And especially at that time, it was great. I was young and could do it. So, anyway, fast forward a little bit. There was like really like stop-start education process. And I was just home trying to like shed as much as possible because it was like a totally new vocabulary. I didn't have the best like practicing systems for stuff that was that fast. It's like I couldn't really slow it down, and I was trying to learn how to play with a pick too because I'd never played with a pick, or very little.
Now, how on earth do you even learn those songs? There's a recurring theme on the show where I have a nightmare that, it's right before the show. And the band is like, you're going on. You're coming on. You got to learn. You got to learn the songs. You got to play now.
I mean, I still have those nightmares.
Yeah, and the ultimate nightmare would be that dream, but with Dillinger Escape Plan, because I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Well, there was a little bit of that reality, which, trying to race through as quickly as possible, where I don't hear much from them. And then in February, I get a call from Ben, and he's like, hey, how you doing? How's the, practicing going? You feel good about the songs? Okay, cool. What are you doing tomorrow? And it was Valentine's Day. I was like, I don't know. I was just going to like, go out to dinner with my girlfriend or something. And I'll see you in Philly the next day because you're playing, the Kill Time, which is next to the Stalag. And
yes.
So, he was like, well, why don't you come to New York? We're playing CB's. Jeff has to go to a funeral. If you only know like 4 or 5 songs, that's cool. Just play what you know.
Wow.
And I was just like, huh? Like, that's a lot of trust and faith. And they're like, yeah, just get to Jersey tomorrow. We'll rehearse real quick, and then we'll hop in the van. Wow. So I get up there. When I'm up, by the time I get there, the van is already packed. They're like, okay, let's go. I'm like, okay. So, and to me, this is like the biggest thing ever. That Dillinger is like, I may as well be playing Wembley Stadium. I'm playing, I'm headlining CB's or something. And
absolutely.
So I remember just playing, and I think there's even a video that just popped up on YouTube, which is great. Like, there's some real like rookie card shit out there now. Some it's some awkward shit, but it's because I just I hadn't rehearsed this stuff with them in like months, and played pretty well. Like, I didn't know the middle of 43 yet, that kind of like Robert Friddy.
Yeah.
I wasn't taught that yet. So I'm just like improvising some weird things and trying to just land, and take a cue from Chris, like where that part ends, and and then just kind of being on the sidelines and being like, oh wait, I know the middle of Destro. So I'd like turn up and just play like the middle of the song and then turn back down because I didn't know the like crazy rhythms. So yeah, it was a lot of trial by fire. And then I played Kill Time the next night. And then again, like that was February. I didn't hear anything, or very little communication until like August.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh, I blew it.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, it's cool. Drop out of school and like quit your job. We're going on tour. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So it was like a big leap of faith, and but it all worked out, obviously. And
yeah.
But that's kind of like the earliest, explosion. So then by like August, it was like, okay, you're coming to Europe with this. I did like a quick Misfits, Murphy's Law run down the East Coast. And then by like Halloween, we were in Europe for the first time.
You had to quit a job. You had to drop out of school.
I wasn't old enough to drink here, but I could drink there. It was amazing.
Oh man, that's good.
Really quick with learning songs like that. You obviously have a background, like you have a pretty good background in theory.
Sorta. You're assuming a lot.
Well, I just assume, like, when you say, like, you played in school and, like, you're a finger, you played mainly finger style. Yeah, I assume, like, you have some type of, like, you can.
I care a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a hack with it, but I'm certainly not, like.
I figured you were, like, a theory expert, because I saw on your Instagram one time, there was just this note page of, like, all these notes and tabs, and it looked really complicated, and I was like, oh, he must be a musical genius. You're telling us that's not the case?
No, that's it. If you look closely, that's my chicken scratch and like hack notes and shorthand arrows pointing here and scribblings and like I don't even know my own songs kind of hackery. This is even more revealing. I need notes like that because of how my brain can be just a complete sieve sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you're communicating with the other guys, are they very theory based and they're like, hey, yeah, no, this is actually, make sure that your root is this and the diminished fifth is that. It's like,
no, it's nothing like that. It was very like, we definitely had our own thing. We knew what worked. We knew what sounded awkward. And yeah, I mean, there was a lot of trust in Dillinger. And Steve Evans was always the gatekeeper. Like, he was great with like kind of keeping us on brand.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of like understood the vocabulary. And then I also believe that once you're in a band for a certain amount of time, there's just kind of like that extra member, like that muse that just sort of just keeps feeding everything through you.
Okay. Yeah.
You kind of just sort of know what to do and you're just chasing it a little bit. And you have to like rehearse like you're playing Zelda and you got to kill a bunch of like little demons and stuff so you can save up for the silver sword or something. You got to get enough hit points or something to get to the next level. So you're sitting in your room and you're just shedding like this 25 seconds of music for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of work that goes into it. You don't just show up and you're like, okay, this is it. You gotta put in the time.
Yeah, it's a lot of insect dentistry. I feel like I'm good at it, or I enjoy and I understand what it takes to get to where I need to be. It means that I have a lot of blind spots too because I'm like so rehearsed. And some of it sounds like when we were talking about, the half pipe or something. It's like it's not necessarily like an Olympic sport where I'm like going for big air and many spins. But like there is like a degree of precision that makes me feel like it is Olympic or like extreme sports. Like I'm trying to play at a certain speed. But even that, like the older I get and the more I play, the more I'm just like, please don't make me do that. It doesn't even sound good on bass. Like even if I get it perfect, it doesn't usually sound that great. I should just play halftime.
Yeah.
How does it work at How did it work at practice? Would like someone show up with a riff and you play it slow
Practice?
first?
We're talking about practice?
Practice?
Talk about the game. I know. I mean, I joke, but like Dillinger, we like admittedly didn't rehearse all that much.
Really?
No, it was like maybe like 1 or 2 rehearsals before some big tours, and then like you just kind of show up ready. And then because there's really nothing that's going to prepare you for like the first 2 shows, which they're always going to have like a little bit of ring rust, even if you like train hard.
Yes.
For me, it was like I would go to yoga a lot. At one time, I was running a lot. When I had the time to not really work a day job between tours or like where I could make my own schedule or something, I would, just try to stay as fit as I could on my instrument and in general and just trust that 2 shows in, it's going to click because it always does. The first show is just going to be like a lot of like piss and vinegar, but it's going to have ring rust. But yeah. So, I mean, but we would rehearse. We would typically rehearse in Jersey, sometimes at Ben's basement. We'd all just kind of like fly there and camp out at his house for a day or 2. Or drive there in my case.
So what was the first release you appeared on? Was it Irony is a Dead Scene?
Yeah. Or like the re-release of the first demo with some live tracks. I'm not sure which one actually landed first, but yeah, there was though it was, I think the Irony is the Dead Scene is probably the one I should tip my hat to.
Yeah.
Or like lay claim to.
So now that's just classic. I remember, now Dillinger was my favorite band at the time, so hearing that Dimitri was leaving was just crazy news, and I was like, what's going to happen? Who are they going to get? And, this EP is one I come back to a lot. Around 2017, I went back and like dug up a lot of old music that I listened to that I haven't heard in a long time, and this EP was one of them, and it's just phenomenal. And I was like, man, I wish I could have seen this live. Like, I wish I could have seen like Mike Patton do this live. I know they did it at some point. Too late, I guess. And not even like a couple months later, my friend texts me and he's like, hey, you want to go to Dillinger's last show?
Right.
Mike Patton's going to do this one night and they're playing that. And I was like, yes. So it was perfect timing.
Did you make it?
Oh yeah, I was
okay,
there.
Great, cool.
But yeah, so how was it recording that? I mean, was there ever talk of Mike Patton becoming a permanent fixture, or was it just, no, he's in it for this, and then we're moving on to the next thing?
I mean, I don't know how everybody else thought, but I guess it kind of crossed my mind at one point, like, what if Mike Patton was this new singer of the band I just joined, like, forever? I mean, I was like 19 years old when this shit is happening, so
oh, wow.
19, 20 years old. I joined Dillinger. I was 20 when I like actually joined. So yeah, I was like 20, 21.
Wow.
When all this is transpiring. So, I'm just like young and naive, and Faith No More was a huge deal for me. And so I think, of course, it crossed my mind and maybe other people's minds, but I don't think it ever really made sense. I think just as quickly it was easy to recognize that, like, I don't want to become like the tomahawk, the thing that he half-asses, not because he's a jerk or something or like some egomaniac, but just like, why would he?
Yeah,
we want somebody like thirsty, and we also kind of want like the next dude like him.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go, because you don't want it to be another project of someone established already. You want it to be your own thing. You got to go to like the next.
Yeah, we had a lot of life left in us, so
yes.
It just didn't seem to make sense.
It was only the beginning. So now we're moving into Irony is a Dead Scene from Miss Machine. We find Greg, our new singer. How did you feel about it? Were you worried about how it would be received? Were you excited about it?
Sure, I was really up in my head about it.
Yeah.
I didn't really think, at least in some ways, like there was a lot of things that, I had a certain thing in my mind's eye of what our singer would look like and sound like and act like, and there was definitely something about Greg when I first met him. Greg like drove to Philadelphia, and then Greg and I drove up to New Brunswick. Actually, I think that Greg and I drove the whole way from Philadelphia to like Dover, and like met everybody else there. So we had like 2 hours in the car together.
Oh, nice.
Driving up, and then like 2 hours driving home. So we had like a good connection, but it was still like really like weird. But I do remember him saying, like right before we pulled into the parking lot, I'm like, "How do you feel?" Or something like, "You ready?" And he was like, "Oh, dude, I'm the dude. I'm just here to like show you." And
wow.
And at the time I was just kind of like, "Who the fuck is this dude?" And like, like not sure if I loved or hated. Is that a bug or a feature? What's happening here? And I think Greg and I would both admit that like we didn't totally click at first, and then right around like when we drove from Philly to California to do the Ironworks record, I felt like we had like 4 or 5 days to ourselves just to like, be complete fanboys over Metallica and everything else, that we were into, and the record we were about to record, and just like raging out about, everything. We just felt like a real kind of tight bond. Same with Ben and everybody. It was like, Chris quit and we're gonna do this.
Yes.
Very like victorious thing. I kind of skipped over Miss Machine there, but.
Oh no, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, it must have been scary. I think the only bands
It's
at that
16
point...
today, by the way.
What's that?
This machine is 16 today, by the way.
Oh my
Today?
gosh. Today's the anniversary. Holy shit.
See how the universe aligns for us time and time again, Tommy? I
It
love
does.
that. This is beautiful. Well, happy 16th birthday to that record. There's
Sure.
some real classics on that for sure. And
Club
yeah, I mean,
bangers.
at that point, I think the only bands who managed to switch singers and pull it off and be successful were like Van Halen and Killswitch Engage. So
Yeah.
you guys are the third. It's only those three.
Black Sabbath? Maybe?
Oh yeah.
well,
Well, I see.
Dio?
No, I there's albums I prefer Iommi Sabbath, like for sure. Like there's a handful. Like that's the thing is like Sabbath is one of those ones that I can go either way with. Like obviously, like Ozzy stuff is classic, but there's some of the other stuff where I'm like, Dio's good, man. Like there's some really good Dio stuff too. I don't want to take anything away from it, but
Yeah. Or, then, and this is kind of a more fringe conversation, but you look at like Iron Maiden or Faith No More, and their original singer, isn't the guy you think of.
really,
Nice.
wait, hold on, Iron Maiden. So Bruce
Yeah,
Dickinson's
dude.
not the original singer.
No.
Whoa, fuck! I got to do
No,
something.
I don't mean it. I shouldn't sound like that. Like,
No, but
I'm telling you as if you forgot, not like you didn't know.
No, I never knew.
Yeah.
I don't even think I've ever heard Iron Maiden. I'm admittedly not up on the classics and not on
You
a
would
lot of metals,
probably,
especially.
I think if I played you like 3 songs, you'd be like, oh, right, maybe this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big one
Would
they used to
sound
play
familiar.
on the radio.
Run for the Hills.
Run for
Yeah.
the Run to the
Yeah.
Hills was huge on like MMR used to play it fairly often. Like
Yeah.
They're almost like football songs, like something you would
Yeah.
hear, like just like in a commercial or something. It's almost at that level at this point.
I saw them. JD Foster was the drummer in a band that I used to be in, and he won tickets from 94 WYSP for it was 2 days in a row, and it was I think it was at that time called the Tweeter Center over in
Yeah.
Camden.
Yeah.
And one day was like I think it was Poison and Motley Crue, and then the next day was Iron Maiden and Queensryche, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember going and being like, holy shit, first of all, the merch that fucking Iron Maiden sells, like,
Oh,
because I guess
God.
they sponsor a soccer team somewhere, and they have soccer jerseys. They were $115, and I was like, oh no, like, I guess I'm not leaving with this with any Maiden shit today.
I've never seen Maiden. That's like one of the ones on my list of like, I won't necessarily run out of my way to do it, but I just haven't seen them yet.
They had a zip line on stage. I remember that.
Sure, it'd be pretty cool. I don't know anybody who's been disappointed.
You know, I was on a tour before. My friend showed me this live CD of, a live Iron Maiden CD, and it looked like, I don't know, it just looked like the beach or something, just this massive stuff. And my friend's like, look closer, and I was like, what? And he's like, that's the audience, and I was like, what? Those are that's like the giantest crowd I've ever seen. Like, it was.
Those
just
are
massive.
each of those is a galaxy, man.
Grains of sand, man.
This was taken with the Hubble Space Telescope pointed at the darkest spot in the Iron Maiden crowd.
So we're in the new era of Dillinger. We've got Greg, we've got Liam, we've got everyone. We're doing it. Now the live shows are taken to new heights. I remember reading stories about like defecating and fires and just like all kinds of crap. And
Guilty as charged?
yeah. Now, did anything ever like really bad happen as a result of the antics?
Lots of threats. I mean, people definitely got hurt. Sorry to anybody who feels like they're owed an apology. I mean, things were a little unhinged at times, and I don't really think you make music that sounds like that if you're not a sort of, frustrated, temperamental person in some ways. I think that Dillinger served as anger management in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, things got rowdy. I don't think we ever got like really stopped, and nothing ever publicly came out about us being, really facing anything like that. I think
That's good.
I think our shows were kind of also like enter at your own risk. I think most promoters and fans kind of understood that, and some people get hurt and they're just like, "Yo, I got this battle scar."
Yeah, well, we had a friend on the show real quick to tell a story about going to your last show, and he said like, yeah, like I'm going and whatever happens, happens, and that's it. It's just kind of accepted.
I mean, in some ways I love that. It kind of makes it this like tribal rite of passage. If you can, process something or exercise some demon or invite some spirit into your life through our music and our shows, then I think that's probably the best offering you could give to it.
Absolutely, and hardcore music in general is like that for me, and Dillinger especially. Just the raw, pure energy. I've been in one hardcore band in my life, and I would go so nuts like that I wasn't even really effectively playing the music.
Sure, high energy, low accuracy.
Yeah, so I would play really bad, and I was the only guitar player too, so I had to be on point. So I would play really bad, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, guys," and they'd be like, "What are you talking about? That was awesome," and I'd be like, "All right."
Yeah, I think there was definitely that. I definitely had a lot of times and years and shows and songs that were just like, this has always kind of been a mess, and then at some point it just clicks. I don't think I really got the playing a pick thing until after I recorded Miss Machine. And I think like Ironworks is when I really felt like, oh, okay, I think I have like my way here.
Yeah.
Or I kind of have this under control now.
How does it work for bass? Do you have to use a lot of different tunings, or can you stay in one or two tunings and capture it all?
Pretty much all E standard.
Really?
I think we have maybe 5 songs in a drop D, and there were like maybe 2 or 3 songs where I played with a drop B, or I'm not a drop B, but I played like BEAD tuning, just to get like some low notes, just for some textures. Most of that's on the Dissociation record.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, pretty much everything was E. I didn't have to do. I mean, we would break so much shit, and our shows were so chaotic that like we had to kind of keep some things really simple. If something broke, we needed somebody else to be able to help us fix it. So it had to be like idiot proof, and like, we didn't want anybody to have to. If some kid wanted to tune our guitar in the crowd, like, what are they going to tune it to? They're going to tune it to E. They're not even going to think about it.
Yeah.
So it really had to be that. You think we're like theory nerds. It's like, no, we just kind of took as many variables out as possible. Yeah, it was like kind of caveman in that way. There wasn't really, there wasn't a lot of finesse.
No, and you know what? There didn't need to be, because no one goes to a Dillinger show for finesse.
Yeah, I mean, that might be on the recordings, but it's definitely not what you go to the show for.
Was anyone ever like hesitant to sponsor you equipment-wise because they're like, these guys are just going to bust it up?
I mean, I'm sure some of them weren't prepared for exactly what it was going to be, but I think that was more Ben's problem. I only broke a few things. I'm not the smash, my stuff dude.
Me either.
Not to say that I haven't. Like, I can remember one time getting furious at an ESP bass, literally furious at the heart of the bass. Like, I took everything about that bass and how it failed me so personally. Yeah, and I just went for it, and it felt so good. So I understand there's a place for that, and like there's freedom in loss. But yeah, I mean, and I've kind of shattered some things and put them back together. But yeah, I mean, instrument makers, I think they're surprised how much I send them back for like little things, or how beat up my stuff looks after a short period of time. But I think then, my basses accelerate to like the mojo spot pretty quickly. It doesn't take too many Dillinger tours to like break a good bass in.
I imagine not. No,
because if it doesn't last, it's just like, okay, I'm sponsored now by this company Zahn, and the stuff is just like, you can't kill it. I call my bass the Roach because you just cannot kill this thing. So, it's almost like I can put it away in the case broken, and I open it the next day and like something magical happens, and it's like back together and in tune. But no, it like never goes out of tune. It's like it's from another planet, I think.
We know people came and went from the band over the years. Did you find it difficult to introduce new members? Like, I remember when reading this interview with Ben a long time ago, like one of the drummers left, and he was just tired of people leaving, so he learned drum programming just on the spot to be able to do it himself. Was it hard, like, to find the right people? It doesn't sound like the easiest band in the world to join, based on the complex nature of the music alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think one benefit of the way the band would proceed is almost everybody in the band had been in the position of the new guy at some time. Mm-hmm. So maybe not on that instrument, but I can remember like, hey man, like, I remember when it was like this, so, go easy on yourself here, but you could probably turn it up here, and I'm sure this is what's going to be expected of you in this way. I'm just giving you some friendly, constructive advice. Let's make this rad. So there was, a decent amount of flexibility, and you don't ask somebody who can't do it.
Yeah.
When you get to that point, you just kind of make it work. Like, everybody had their strengths and their weaknesses. And that could be like somebody's awesome on stage, difficult off stage, vice versa. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, it was challenging, but I think like we all wanted it to work. So we all like worked as hard as we needed to make it work. And, and sometimes certain relationships, like, like I said, with Greg and I, it took like, at least 3 or 4 years for us to like really click in a deeper way. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, I connected with Billy pretty early, but I can remember other times where I felt like, oh man, we just like dropped into a new level of friendship here.
Yeah.
Whether it's just like us having spent enough time together, or like a certain level of maturity and things happening in our lives individually, we're still here together. And wow, and even since, I talked to everybody in the band at some point pretty much, including old members.
Yeah, and that's the thing with bands. You're together for a number of years. It's a relationship in a sense.
Yeah,
I know that's a cliche and a lot of people say it, but relationships have ups and downs. You know, sometimes you don't like each other. Sometimes you reach new heights. Sometimes it goes back down. That's all part of the process.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brotherhood. We dug some trenches together. You know, I love all of them. Yeah, I mean, it was difficult, but it's also like, you know, like I said earlier, like I joined when I was like 20.
That's incredible. Like I didn't even join my first band until I was like 24, I think. And 20 years old, right out of the box, boom, Dillinger Escape Plan.
You know, but it wasn't what it is now then. But
Yes.
I think I knew it was. And
Right.
to me it was. So but you know, point being, like, a lot of like my impression of Ben was maybe cast when he was like 24. And his impression of me was cast when I was like 20. And now we're like 40. So things are very different. And like, of course, there's certain aspects of my personality that will like go with me to the grave. But there's other things about us and like things that like, you know, I cared a lot about then that I don't care about now, and vice versa. And,
Yeah.
you know, so it was difficult because we all like cared about it so much. And, you know, express that in so many like different ways.
So you guys were able to live solely off the band, right? I remember reading another interview where you said, you know, you wouldn't get tour buses and you would kind of keep it just to you guys and do as much stuff by yourselves as possible, so you would be able to live off of the band.
That wasn't true, and wasn't true for everybody at the same time. You know, certain people were like, you know, living in situations where they didn't have to pay rent or, you know, had a lower overhead. Like I pretty much always had a day job or some kind of side hustle through like at least 2010.
Okay.
I remember working one night at Union Transfer. Like I worked with R5 at a lot of the R5 shows. That was like a pretty fun gig, hard work, but fun gig.
Yeah.
But I ended up like opening Union Transfer with a lot of those people. And at one night I was working the box office. Dillinger tickets were on sale for a Dillinger show there in the future. I was selling tickets to Dillinger shows and to people, and it was just like the weirdest transaction ever.
That's so funny.
And I just kind of had this like funny moment of like, I like just feel like I should be at home, like playing bass or not playing bass, you know, and just kind of like just doing something else. I don't really, I enjoy this, but I don't like need to be doing this right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just kind of like working, and I'm just like a busybody.
Yeah.
Other people, yeah, were like, you know, living off of Dillinger at a different pace, you know, and I also was kind of like living in Philadelphia and was like, I want to buy a house, you know, like as soon as possible. I didn't want to pay rent when I was going to be on tour that much,
Right.
but I didn't necessarily want to leave Philadelphia, and moving back home wasn't really an option or a goal. So, so I just kind of did it a little differently. But yeah, I mean, I would say at least by like Ironworks-ish era, it was mostly Dillinger.
Okay. Do you still live in Philly? I had heard you bought a house there like, I don't know, 12 years ago when I was still living there.
Yeah, I bought a house in Fishtown in like 2007. And
that's where I live too.
Okay. And recently moved to East Germantown.
You're out of the city. How does it
Yeah,
feel?
I mean, we're in Philadelphia, but it's considered America's first suburb.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
It is. There's a lot of history here. There was a second White House here at one point.
Really?
Like right down the street, when Philadelphia was a capital, Washington moved his family here to escape the pandemic.
Get out, really?
Yeah, full circle.
So how does the conversation start where we decide this is going to be the end of Dillinger?
There really wasn't much of a conversation, and it was kind of.
Did you just get a call one day and they're like, "Hey, in 2017, it's done. Bye."
I mean, at that point, this is when like, and I say this lovingly, but that was like when communication in Dillinger was, if not dysfunctional, at least weird.
Yeah.
And
now, why is that? Were people not getting along, or was it just too much time together? Or
yes. So the conversation is mostly just like a bunch of like kicking this idea around and like, oh, Ben says this and Greg thinks this and well, Liam kind of feels like this and Billy, So then it was kind of just like, okay, this is just happening. Like it was out in the press. So then we just kind of went along with it. And there were times where I was like, yeah, this is a great idea. Yeah. And then other times where I was like, we're going to stop doing this. Why? Like you get off stage after a really good show and you're like, fuck yeah, wait, what? And to me, it felt like I was like going to see a like dying relative in a hospital every night. There was like a part of me that I was going to visit every night and like say goodbye to.
Yeah.
And it was like this slow motion thing. There was also this like excitement of like, I get to do this like, I can count it now. And there's like a finite number, and I like things that have an ending. You can kind of have like a nice story arc and make your own narrative if you want.
Yeah, and I think you guys did it perfectly. Stories have to have a beginning and an end. When things just go on endlessly, sometimes it's not the greatest, but I think Dillinger went out, on top.
Yeah, that was how no regrets.
Yeah.
It was exactly the way it should have been.
Yes.
And yeah, there was very little that I would change about any of that. Dismount.
So how did you feel during those last set of shows? Was it like a whirlwind of emotions? And I'm so glad that my friend got in touch with me and we went, because it was my first time seeing you guys in a long time, and it was incredible. I think someone like jumped from the top level of Terminal 5 when I was there. Like,
sounds like something Greg would do or Ben.
Yeah.
Sounds like something that would happen at a Dillinger show.
Greg did that too, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it was a lot of emotion. I feel like I had a decent amount of time to like get my ego in check for like the eventual impact of it all. Because we kind of protracted it. Same goes for like finances. I kind of made sure that I was like living as simply as I could to make, to give myself a cushion or a springboard to get somewhere else.
Yes.
And just trying to plan it as best as possible without planning too hard. But of course, like those days show up and like, the child care that we had arranged does not happen. And just like, of course, everything tends to fall apart when you need it to hold together.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. When you need like the most stability, that's when things become the most chaotic.
It was a little weird, personally, that was a little weird. The emotions were weird. It was interesting kind of navigating like the guests and like their emotions.
Yeah.
As compared to your emotions and even like every last show, like if we would play a show for the last 2 years, like for most of the audience, that was the last time they were going to see us. And some people were like, for them, it was the last show. And it was weird for me because I'd be like, and this is my 211th show till the end. And I can't really share your deep empathy right now.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. But there was a lot of like imposter syndrome where I definitely felt like I was like, have you seen that movie Inside Out? Or like, where like basically there's like kind of thing like piloting in your brain.
Yeah.
And I was like watching my hands and like seeing the crowd behind my hands. It was just like this sea of just like, it looked like something out of like, some stormy sea movie.
Yeah.
And like these people just like, it was just like this, it looked like liquid.
Yeah.
And just undulating. And I was just like kind of tripping out and being like, dude, look at your hands. Look at what is happening here. Where are you right now? Bro, just kind of freaking out, but in like a fun way, like kind of screaming on the inside, like, this is your life. What the fuck is happening right now? So it was cool to just kind of have those like moments of gratitude and just like appreciation for the whole thing and like really connecting with the like energy of it all. Because I was so up in my head about playing well, but like, even though it was the last time and I obviously had to give it some effort, there was also this like, it had to be like a release too. And there were a lot of songs that we hadn't played in a long time, so there was a lot of pressure to play things that like we hadn't played in forever, but also this kind of opportunity to like redeem myself and finally play something from like the calculating days that I just couldn't physically play that well.
Yeah.
By the time we stopped playing it. So, I don't know. There was a lot going on, obviously all the members, all the different fans, faces, the people that show up out of the woodwork. It was intense, but it kind of felt like the end of Big Fish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because like you had all these guests, Mike Patton, Dimitri was back. I think Brian Benoit was there too, right? Brian Benoit, however you pronounce it.
It was heavy, but same thing. Like all the bass players, like me, Jeff Wood, and Adam. There were a couple faces that weren't there, but for the most part, like I said, it kind of had that Big Fish quality, and it was weird. And I think the emotional stuff came out like in the days and weeks after. I think like people freaked out in their own weird ways. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think everybody was like really sensitive. I don't know. It was complicated. It was definitely a complicated time, but
yeah, that it takes me a while to process things. Like for example, last year I was in this play and I had a huge part. I spent months and months and months learning lines every week in rehearsals. It was my life for, I don't know, almost a year. And then we did the play and then it was over. And I went home and I had nothing to do. I didn't have many friends at the time. It was a weird stage of my life, I guess. And it was summertime and I was like, what the fuck am I going to do now? So I pretty much just sat inside and played old first-person shooter games, which was cool. I mean, but like, how did you process it after it was really done, after those shows?
I mean, some of it is like I don't process it, or like I do have like a meditation practice. I do have a yoga practice, and I do consciously try to like work through it. Because I had so much time to think about it, like I got to say goodbye to like most people and most cities that I wanted to. Then, and I also kind of just had a healthy understanding of like, I am going to be emotional about some of this stuff. But then I just kind of stayed busy. I really turned into my, more attention into my family. I had Azusa to kind of springboard off, at least keeping me like creatively motivated. John Frum did, similar things and is still, we're kind of slowly writing, but writing actively. So I just kind of stayed busy, like I was saying earlier, like I just have always had like a stir crazy, like too many hobbies personality. So yes. I got really into like my house and like fixing things up and renovating there. Like I said, we just moved. There's work to be done here. I had a lot of like personal hardships in like the end of last year. So that kind of like ate up a lot of my time and attention kind of working through all of that. So
you want to share any of those personal hardships here today on the podcast?
I don't know.
Here, I'll give you one. Now, my whole life used to be completely insane, and I talk about it on the podcast. I used to drink and party and do drugs way too much, so I finally got my act together a couple months before your last set of shows, and it was like waking up from a 15-year coma.
Right.
So that's why I reconnected with a lot of the old music that I loved, and that's
if I had a story that connected more with what you're saying, which I appreciate and think is rad, and congratulations. That's not really my story necessarily. Not that I didn't actually have a lot of time where I'm like, I'm going to just kind of dry dock for a little while and
right.
And just kind of figure some shit out, and realize that like this isn't necessarily serving me, at least not right now.
Right.
No, it was a little bit more complicated and personal
Understood.
than that, and not that I don't want to. It's complicated because like it's something that like to the people I've discussed this with, I have like an incredible sense of humor, and like it's really like I can be super vulnerable and lighthearted. But there's also this side of it where like if I start talking about it, I feel like I'm gonna sound like a PSA. And
Oh yeah, yeah. See, no, I'm with you. Now I'm very careful about what exactly I discuss because I don't want
I
to
just
sound
don't
like
even know what to say, and I don't necessarily want to be like, I don't want somebody, and not to say I don't want to help people if I can, because I'm sure I should talk about it. But there's also this part of me where I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like because I'm humble or lazy, but I just kind of don't want. It's almost like I just want to disable comments, and I can't once I say something.
Yeah, that
It's something
I actually.
and the other thing is like it's something that like in some ways I'm still processing. So I don't really know if now there's like different milestones with it that I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But in some ways I'm like, I don't really know if now's even the time to get into it. And I hate to say it too, but like 6 months ago it was like one of the only things I could think about, and right now I'm just kind of like, oh yeah. I've just kind
that
of
thing
like
happened. Yeah.
right. And not to
Yeah.
say it wasn't like holy shit, that was a life-changing moment, but
yeah.
time just kind of feels more and more like a weird simulation. And
Especially lately.
and I'll say I what I can say about it is it's definitely moved me from like an atheist who relapses on LSD to somebody who actually like gives God a little bit more room in my life in some ways.
Yes.
Isn't that weird?
It's yeah.
Keith and I had this conversation not that long ago, where I was I kind of did what you were talking about, kind of like dry docked for a little bit, and just really kind of wanted to take stock of what I had and where I was going in terms of trajectory and stuff. And one of the things I've always been like, and for a while I was kind of like an outspoken like, I can't believe you go to church, that blah, blah, and like I was argumentative to the point where like most people would just be like, all right, that's enough. Like, and one of the things that I was looking through and talking about with Keith was like, just acknowledgement of like that there's something out there, some type of higher power out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I've come to a point, and this is we could unpack like a whole other conversation here, and not that I don't want to get into it, but I kind of can't go all the way into this, but I will say, I guess I got to a place where I've always believed in something, or at least like, I was raised Roman Catholic. I enjoyed going to Catholic school, at least for the sake that, like, although I thought like some of it was a waste of time, there was a certain amount of like reverence and tradition and ceremony. It wasn't like anybody was up there like murdering anybody on the altar when I was there. So I know there was a tradition of it, and I know there were things that were happening behind the scenes. But what I was, witness to through also with like my grandparents and their practices was like kind of interesting, or at least, I learned a lot of values-driven things that I don't think I would have learned as easily in other places. So I have like a foundation of it. I was always into theology. I've always been like a seeker. As soon as I like dropped acid for the first time, I like freaked out, and in the best way. And I feel like that like really changed my life for the better. And I got really focused on like what I wanted, and like more in touch with my body and nature. And so anyway, recently it's like it hasn't even been like going back to Catholicism so much as just like being open to lately it's been kind of like Vedic scripture stuff, and just kind of getting into the idea that like science has its place, and science is really good at labeling something and telling me what something is and maybe how it works to the best of our understanding. But until science can like hand me a seed that it created out of nowhere that I can put in the ground that'll grow this other thing that will then grow this other fruit that will then have like 1,000 more seeds inside of that one fruit, until science can like actually do that from scratch, then I'm gonna save room for the fact that there's probably a bunch of shit that we don't quite understand. And our way of thinking about things, and like even that like we're evolving right now, like who's to say we're not devolving? I don't really know. So I'm open to questioning quite a bit, and but also finding a little bit more like structure in my life and even my family's life, having a little bit more purpose to my sadhana.
Absolutely. I feel you. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I grew up Roman Catholic too, 12 years of Catholic school, so I'm firmly still digging my heels in the ground against the idea of like God is a person I have to answer to, and I have problems with authority anyway, so that's a whole other thing.
I was gonna say, I think that's like the Judeo-Christian version of God, and like, but if we just like stick with the Jesus part,
Yeah.
it's actually not so bad. Like like if you take the best of what he said, which is basically just like, love your neighbor,
Yeah.
do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. If you see this guy without a coat, like give him a coat. If you see him hungry, feed him. If you see him lonely, go check check on him. And ultimately, the guy was like the nicest dude in the world and got crucified for it.
Yeah.
So no good deed goes unpunished. I'm not saying that the Catholic Church itself doesn't have things to answer to, but like,
Oh yeah.
People like Jesus or Saint Francis, like whether they existed or not, their story, I'm totally down with it. That's pretty cool history to have, or pretty cool story, or if you're gonna idolize something, like that's not a bad place to start.
Saint Francis was my confirmation saint. He was the man.
Okay. I have a St. Francis tattoo, and my wife and I both went to a St. Francis Assisi in 2 different cities, so we find that
that's fate.
There was a stand-up comedian that he passed away about 6 or 7 years ago now. His name was Patrice O'Neill, and he was talking about his struggle with faith, and he was like, look, I don't care what you think about religion in general. He's like, if Jesus was real, he was a bad dude. Like he was a crazy dude to be able to say like, I'm gonna die for humanity. And Patrice's quote was something like, I wouldn't take a hard pinch for most people. Like,
yeah, sure.
and this dude just was like, yo, I'm gonna take it for everybody. And his whole thing was like, yo, he's a bad motherfucker. Like, this guy's a badass dude. Like, and I think one of the things that I enjoyed about, at least the religion that like I got when I was in high school was, it was more the study of what theologians thought.
You said you went to LaSalle, right?
Yeah.
What was LaSalle's lineage?
So it was founded by this guy named Saint Jean Baptiste de LaSalle, and he was a French missionary that he converted a bunch of people, but his big thing was he wanted to work with young men to be able to instill in them Christian values so that they would then start families and perpetuate the same ideas that, do unto others, like, with golden rule type stuff. But his whole thing was to start schools, much like the Jesuits. Like, it was the idea of our job is to educate. This is why we're here. So I remember specifically my one class I had in religion, I think it was my sophomore year, was we read St. Augustine's Confessions, and we read a huge chunk of Summa Theologica by St. Thomas More. And I remember thinking that one of St. Thomas More's initial things that kind of struck me was he had this thing called the prime mover theory.
Yeah.
And he's like, if we're all moving and we're humanity, and humanity has started from, even if you believe in evolution, what was the initial move that set everything off?
The demiurge, isn't that like one of those ideas too? Yeah, I mean it's kind of like what the painter without the painting, or there has to be some kickstart, or there just isn't, and that's where you just kind of realize the hardware that I have is not capable of understanding this fully. I might be able to feel it in my heart, and I might be able to feel that, I might be able to blast out on enough DMT to really, or get deep enough.
There's so I watched this thing. This was a Nova special a few years back, and it was called The Theory of Everything. And the whole idea was that Isaac Newton came up with these gravitational laws, and they work perfectly for things like planets.
Are you talking about the universal field theory, where like
Yes.
there is no universal field theory because physics laws and
The laws of particle physics and
they don't match.
yeah, they just don't
Right.
jive. So like if you apply rules to these big things like planets, and then you take the Niels Bohr model and like go, okay, well there's like this kind of chaotic things happening. Particles can be two
Well, that's
places at
where
once.
I can tie this all back in. On the Dillinger Ironworks record, we have songs that are when acting as a particle and when acting as a wave.
Oh yeah, that's a great if you haven't ever YouTubed like what that looks like, why things like how things can be in two places at once, and why we can't explain it. It is phenomenal. It literally will take your breath away because you're just like, oh no, like
So and if you like add the the God layer on that,
yeah.
and not just look at it from simply the antiseptic science point of view, it's a pretty powerful concept. And they've been talking about it forever in science. We think it's like this new discovery, but like if you go into the Rig Vedas, they describe the atom, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, they predict the Buddha like thousands of years before he shows up. I was going to say too about high school, like the Jesuits, what I appreciated about them is like we had to read, some of the kind of things that you're talking about, but we also got to read like Black Elk Speaks and Siddhartha and some other stuff that I consider to be pretty eye-opening to other ways of thinking about faith and religion that I wouldn't expect a Christian organization to promote.
Yeah, no, I was exposed to things like Albert Camus, Friedrich Nietzsche.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it was like, wait a minute, I thought you guys were like
They taught me how to think. I appreciate it.
yeah, oh no, and it was great because the teachers, especially, I had this one guy. His name, there was two brothers that taught there, and they both taught English literature. The Mccabe Brothers. So I had Edward McCabe my freshman year, and I had Bernie McCabe my junior year. And they were just these people. They were like the nuttiest dudes in the world. They were hilarious, and they were just, but they forced you to really think about what was happening and the overlaying of like, so when we read Lord of the Flies, we then had to read all the things about Sigmund Freud's idea of id, ego, superego, and have to kind of like, all right, so what does this say about humanity? When we leave these kids on an island, what is the id saying here? Like, what does this mean? And we're like, oh my God, like as a 14-year-old riding home on the bus, I remember sitting there being like, there's so much shit I don't understand.
Oh yeah, I don't know shit about shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like that right now. But no, this is good. I like to see really where everybody is at because, I was out of it for so long. I feel like I've really only started growing up in the past 3 years. I spent so much time alone, isolated from people because I was so sensitive and I couldn't handle any criticism or any rejection or anything, and just it feel like an awakening in the last 3 years, and it's like this podcast is part of that because Tommy and I reconnected. Well, I mean, we've been steady friends for a long time, but like just going to shows again and talking about old times and reconnecting with all the old music, we got the idea to do this thing, and I like to think in some way that this could maybe help people too, because when I was all by myself, all fucked up all the time, like I listened to Howard Stern, and like Howard Stern were my friends. Or I listened to This American Life. Like This American Life were my friends. Like podcast and radio were like my only friends. So if this can be that for somebody else, then that's the ultimate gift.
Yeah, it's just really nice when you like to be able to talk to, like, this is the thing is like I picture when I think of Keith at 16, 17 years old, it's him wearing an XL Dillinger Escape Plan under the running board hoodie, like, and now we're talking to a member of it, and it's what 25 years later, like it's insane now to think about that. But I think the biggest thing for us is that we always try to have something through, like the theme that we run through with this is that, like, if you are someone that's struggling or someone that's, you think you're alone with this, you're not. Or if you think you're that weird kid, like, because I spent a lot of time, especially at LaSalle, where I was like, oh, I'm the weird kid that listens to like punk rock music. Like I was that kid, and it's like you're not alone. Like you're not that kid by yourself. You don't live in isolation. There are other people out there, but it does take I read this book. I think the guy, I forget his first name's Ryan, but the book is called The Obstacle is the Way. And it's based on a series of meditations from Marcus Aurelius. And his whole thing is like, look, trials and struggles in your life bring about the best parts of you. And in the moments where you're there, it seems dark and it seems shitty and it seems horrific, but those are the things that truly test your mettle, the things that bring out the best part of you.
Well, boys, that was good. Those are the moments I live for on this podcast, honestly. But I'm gonna shift back to another musical related question now for Liam. So Liam, in my mind, Dillinger is on like their own level in the similar way as like Meshuggah, in that it's such a unique sound. It's undeniably yours. So when you hear another band replicating that sound, it's very obvious. Like, do you ever hear another band doing a Dillinger-esque thing and think like, yeah, I did that?
I mean, I recognize in some ways, like, okay, that sounds familiar, or, I think I notice it more like in my own projects, like when I'm working with other people who were Dillinger fans, and they just kind of naturally do something, and I'm like, nope, can't go there, or like I'm not pursuing that idea because I've already done it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I mean, some of it is like, I mean, who am I to judge? And it's not really mine anyway. Like I said, I kind of feel like, of course there were other people, and Ben was such a strong songwriting force that, maybe he felt like that more than I did. But for the most part, I'm just kind of like, okay, that's just where you're at. And I'm sure other people hear certain things in our music here and there and can call it out, be like, oh, that's a, Dead Guy or a Faith No More, or I don't know, whether they're right or not, is subjective. But no, I mean, I guess I try not to be that ego-minded about it. I hope they work through it and get to something that's, I hope it's just kind of like a passing thing. A good artist borrows, a great artist steals. I think it's
Yes, that's how I think it works. Like you start with something you really like, and you pretty much replicate that, and then as you continue on it,
you steal the bike and you repaint it, and it's yours.
So how do you look back on the overall legacy of Dillinger? Are you happy? Are you fond?
Yeah, I mean, I so many things, so many of my goals were, shattered through that band. I, in good ways, obviously, I mean that in like, I achieved a lot with the band. Certainly there were sacrifices made in my life to do the band.
Yes.
I missed funerals and weddings and birthdays, and, probably broke a lot of hearts, and, had people worry about me for a long time. So there's all of that, but I also met my wife on the road, and we conceived our daughter in Australia, and I have a lot of brothers, and I have these amazing memories and this kind of confidence, maybe a little bit of hubris that I have to work out, but just so much experience, so much gratitude. I'm really just like, I hate. This is gonna sound super corny, but # blessed. I really had fucking cool life, and I worked for it, but only through the grace of my teachers and the opportunities and the privileges that I've had. So I look back on it and think it was pretty cool. I don't, there's also, looking forward, it's kind of like there's always going to be the Fugazi Botch fan in me that feels like it's totally cool if this is it. I played that last show like it was my last show. And I feel like I played every show like it was my last show, but there was one that was the last show. I don't know what circumstances would, drive us to do it. So yeah, I mean, I feel really happy that it was what it was, and I think all of us played that as if, even if there's something in the back of your head, like any of us could die tomorrow. So, I hope that you all played it that way.
Keith, that was one of my closing thoughts last time. That was like yeah.
Oh right, yeah. I was like, oh man, he's gonna get Tommy going again.
No, I stepped back from it. I knew it.
We had a whole rap on like tomorrow could be the last day. So
Yeah, you got to die like you're gonna live, for 10 seconds.
so let's talk about some of your new projects. We've got Azusa, right? Did that start around when Dillinger was ending? Were you already working on it?
As Dillinger was kind of tapering out, that was tapering on. So yeah, I mean, creatively, once I was done recording the dissociation stuff, I was, pretty focused on the Azusa stuff. And yeah, I mean, we just put out our second record in April. Still writing now, I guess. I guess working on a third something. Obviously the pandemic kind of sidelines any touring plans, so it was weird to put out a record in April of 2020. So a lot of uncertainty there. I don't know when I'm going to get back to Oslo to track anything or see my friends. And, like I said, Devin Townsend, I was supposed to be on tour with that. There's some talk of making some stuff happen, but it's really hard to predict what that would be like. So I'm just in a holding pattern. I'm like teaching lessons and, playing and recording a little bit here and there and trying to just, I like practicing. I like rehearsing and being like, I'm going to, learn how to play through these changes, even if it's abysmal. I don't really think I'm the strongest improviser, so that's something that I'm trying to expand upon.
So when you teach, how now I don't even know how I would begin to teach because I don't know the name of like one note or chord or like I play solely by ear.
I mean, you can teach some things, but you're just kind of trying to teach this person how to, find their muse and their voice. And of course, you want to teach enough technique where you're like, okay, this, how to get a sound out of this thing without hurting yourself for a long period of time.
Do you ever scare a student and you're like, okay, we're going to start with 43% burnt?
I'm so soft. Arguably,
yeah, you
too
have
soft.
to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'll challenge somebody if they want to be challenged, but for the most part, I'm just kind of, getting people excited and motivated to play. And it's a lot of older people who are just like, I gave this up when I had kids, and I just want to play.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you see a lot of people that come to you when they've like plateaued and they're like, all right, I've been playing for a while and I just feel like I'm.
Because the other thing is like, you don't have to be my student for like 10 years. Like if you just want to come in for like 3 lessons and hear what I have to say and dip out, like that's cool. It's not a commitment. And like take what I'm saying, and if you think I gave you enough to work on for a year, which I might, call me in a year, and if not, just send me a text and say hi every once in a while. And yeah, I mean, I keep it pretty casual. It doesn't have to be like this formal. Some people just like send me their demos and they're just like, yo, just I'll pay to get on Skype for a little bit and just like talk through this, and just be like, what do you think? And where could I do better, in some capacity?
That's a good idea. See, I'm over here writing music by myself, like, spitting into the void, and I could be Skyping with Liam and being like, help
I mean,
me.
it's if you trust me, but I'm just going to try to help you figure. It's like going to music therapy. It's like, well, what do you think? I don't really even need to do much of the talking. I'm just going to kind of guide you to ask certain questions of yourself, find out where your roadblocks are.
Liam, can I ask you something about how did you get hooked up with Devin Townsend? Because I watched for a long time and I was trying to be like a shredder and just play guitar all the time. Like I watched a lot of his videos. The dude is fucking hysterical. Like,
he's crazy.
He literally seems like a crazy person. And first of all, like when you see him play guitar, he's a really good guitar player. But I don't know if a lot of people know this. He was the lead vocals on a Steve Vai record in '92 or '93, I think. He is a phenomenal singer. Like
he's just a machine all around. We had the same booking agent. Dillinger and Devin had the same booking agent. So we ended up on a couple festivals together. Not many, brief interactions, but like memorable. Greg sung on one of his records, which was just like another way to connect the two bands. And a couple months ago, I got a Twitter DM that was just like, "Hey, can we talk in like an hour?" And I guess he just remembers having some conversations, and somebody, Wes Hawk, suggested me as somebody who could, probably fill some shoes for Devin. We had a good conversation, and yeah, everything was lined up, and COVID.
Yeah. That's a shame because he really seems like he's like a real character. Like he seems like a fucking he's so
He's 1 in 7.5 billion. That's for sure.
for sure.
Here's a question for you. Now, when you've been in several bands, as you have been, Liam, on this level, do you get a lot of people hitting you up, like trying to start bands?
Yes and no. I mean, there's a couple people who are very persistent, but I also encourage them to be. Where I'm like, hey, you know what? Now's not the time, and I'm sorry. It might be 2 years from now. It might be a totally different project. It might be me calling you. I would love to do something with you, but this isn't it. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of I've really had to learn how to, adopt the idea of like, if it's not fuck yeah, it's no. Like, there's a lot of things that I'd love to just like play with for a little bit, or like play one show just because, but that's kind of just fucking with other people's time and my own. So yeah, it's tough. Sometimes I've had to say no to a lot of stuff that I just don't have time for, because it's like I just want to make sure that I have time for the fuck yeah stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, there's been a couple things where people have been like, hey, let's just, like, hey, if you have time, and I'm like, I do and don't.
Now with like with someone like you, I always imagine like, hey, if I was in a band the level of Dillinger, I could really get shit done. Because I had a band a couple years ago here, and I could not. I disbanded the band because I could not find people to stay in it. I could not find people to stay in it. I could not find people to show up to practice. So it's just on hold indefinitely.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's kind of also like I have to, for the most part, work with professionals. Like, if you haven't been playing music or like doing that a certain level, I might not be as interested, because I take it so seriously that like I can't have like the shoobies.
That's another thing that I found. Yeah. So I would a guy would show up to the tryout and be able to play all the songs in one take, and I'd never hear from him again. Or a guy would show up and refuse to learn the songs, and I had to ask him to leave.
It's tough. I mean, keeping a band together is difficult before you even start writing.
What was the last newer band you heard that really inspired you? And by newer, I mean like anything after 2010.
I mean, there's so many. Now I'm just kind of... That's tough. I mean, I really like Bent Knee. I really like this other band, Clap Clap. It's kind of like a DJ. Really like that. I like Thundercat. Like some of the... like guilty pleasure would be like some of that like Knower or Wolfpack or Fearless Flyers. Like some of that like kind of turbo musician funk.
So where does your taste fall now these days? Like me, I'm a big hardcore, post-rock, hip-hop guy.
I mean, I listen to a lot of like that kind of musician-y funk stuff. I like the Dusty Fingers funk, like kind of Jay Dilla sample material. I like some new metal occasionally. Like maybe 1 or 2 records a year really like get me. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of books. I end up listening to a lot of like kids' music.
Oh yeah.
And like kind of trying to find stuff that like both my daughter will like and I will tolerate. So it's sometimes like the Beatles, and just like, or just no music.
Yeah, I'm trying to get on that level because I always have something on.
Yeah, I like every once in a while something on like Mixcloud. I'll find like some DJ set of stuff I like. Weather Report, live tapes from Japan. That stuff blows my mind. Yeah, I don't know. I go back more than I stay current. Occasionally I'll hear some stuff and I dive in, but I don't really. I have a pretty shallow, thing with most current bands.
Yeah, I once in a while something new really grabs me, and those are the moments that I live for. When I hear like a new band and it's just right up my alley, and I find a song that I want to listen to like 15 times in a row.
I still get that like tingle for, new music. I just don't hear as much of it, and it's not as big a part of my life right now. I don't have that like seek it out. I don't need to get all the new releases. That's not like my agenda right now. I'm way more interested in parenting.
It was great. I really like I think the aspect of talking about just people's ideologies and stuff like that are really great. The one thing I was looking up when I was like doing research for this is that one of the things they talked about is you're really into meditation. And I've only recently got into it, probably about in the last year or so. But can you just like talk about like what got you there and like what's your routine look like?
I think I'd always kind of dabble as a teenager. I guess I don't, just kind of read like a beginner Buddhism book or something and try to meditate. Or like if I was high, maybe I'd try to meditate a little bit. Just chanting Om and just anything I could do, which is better than nothing, and I realize now that, I was up in my head about whether I was doing it right, and I was probably doing it more heartfelt and for the best reasons and the best ways than I do now. So anyway, I then eventually just kind of got into yoga, which led me to transcendental meditation, which I was introduced to this woman, Nancy Cook, through why can't I think of his name right now? Alkaline Trio, then went on to Blink 182. Why can't I think of his name? Oh man, he's such a great human being, and I can't think of his name right now. Sorry, I love you. Anyway,
Matt Skiba.
Yeah, Matt Skiba.
Yes.
So he introduced me to her. Little did I know she was like at the ashram with the Beatles and the woman who taught David Lynch and Howard Stern. And so I was like, oh, okay. And she didn't charge an arm and a leg. She took like a small donation and just was like just this sweet. I would have paid the money just to hang out and drive this woman around, which I ended up doing anyway. So that was kind of my start, was TM, which was great and has been great, and I still use it occasionally. But it just kind of goes all over the place. Sometimes I just kind of add different things. Like sometimes I'll listen to like binaural beats, but most of the time I was doing that and like white noise to tune out like backstage and bus noise. I was meditating a lot like before Dillinger shows, like maybe about an hour before the show. I'd meditate for 20 minutes, do some like yoga stretching a lot of the time, breathing, like some pranayama exercises if I had time. Sometimes I'd be drinking a beer with a family member or something right before. So not saying I was a total purist, but I would, most of the time I would do that.
You have to find a healthy thing to get yourself centered for whatever it is.
Well, I do that for the days that I don't. I'm kind of just like, it's like a bank account, and I'm just kind of making some deposits. So some days I can take some withdrawals.
There you go. That's a good comparison. Like me, I used to just get annihilated all the time, and I was never able to do anything. But like now, I get really nervous before we do the podcast. I get nervous before I do anything, but I'll sign on early. There's this bed of dramatic piano music up here, and I'll put that on, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, and then now I just kind of, if I have time, we'll just kind of try to drop into TM, even for like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I've been getting more into like chanting japa and actually like engaging my senses a little bit more by like chanting mantras as opposed to just like meditating quietly.
Okay, yeah, so that's what I've been doing a lot of, is just the quiet meditation. And when I started like the first month, when they would talk about like, like empty your thoughts and think of nothing, I really seriously thought, I'm like, dude, I'm fucking killing it. Like I'm doing like 6-7 minutes where I'm keeping my brain completely off. And then what I realized is like, no, you're not. Like you absolutely are fucking not doing this. Like, I think I'm up to like, I can get a full like maybe 30 seconds.
I was going to say, yeah, maybe a minute if you're lucky.
And it's just because your brain is like, and I think
you can't stop it. So you're just trying to train it and recognizing, at least observing how active your mind is.
Yeah.
And how your mind and your heart are totally different. I mean, I've heard a great analogy where again, like kind of a Bhagavad Gita analogy would be, you've got a chariot, you've got 5 horses, those are your senses. The reins is your mind. Then there's the chariot driver, which is like, your intelligence. And then you've got the chariot, which is your body, your ego, or I'm sorry, you're like your soul. And then you've got a passenger in the chariot, which is like the super soul, which is sort of the energy that connects everybody. I don't know if that makes any sense, of at least the way I'm able to like observe my senses of being like, is it my senses just running away from me? And with my mind, I can kind of control them. Like, dude, you don't need that right now. Or like, don't let that person get to you. And then, you can kind of from there recognize that you have like, an intelligence that can control the mind. And then you've got like a soul that can actually inform the intelligence when you sit quietly enough and you ask yourself honest questions.
That's really funny. Is like that was actually one of the quotes in that The Obstacle is the Way book, and he says something like, and you have power over your mind, not outside events. So once you realize this, you start to find the strength in that realization. Like that becomes the strength. It's like, all right, I can't control this other stuff.
I think, all this stuff is connected. Like, I think like yoga, asana, like physical yoga practice helps inform you, of like, I can breathe through these difficult moments. Like, I don't want to be in this pose right now. This sucks. But I realize that I'm holding my breath, and if I breathe, I can work through it. And like, it's the same with playing bass. Like, I realized like I would mess up difficult parts because I was holding my breath. So just kind of getting used to just like, I'm okay with discomfort because life is suffering. I may as well get used to it. All of this is going to get taken away and then given back and then taken away again. So I may as well just get used to it. It's all impermanent, but I don't think it's nothing. I think it's more and more special every day.
Well, Liam, once again, I just want to say thanks. Dillinger was one of my gateway bands into hardcore. I was hooked from the moment I saw them, and just so many classic songs over the years. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say Prancer is one of the best songs ever. I'm talking ever. How do you feel about me saying that?
I sure. I mean,
so
you're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah, that is my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. So I just want to thank you for your contributions. We look forward to more from Azusa. We hope you get back out on the road with Devin Townsend. We look forward to more. So thank you so much. This was really awesome.
Liam, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And folks, listen, remember to email us. Remember to subscribe to us. Remember to like us. Remember to review us. We need it. We need you. Share us. Talk about us. And continue to listen to us. So good night, everybody. And until next time.